I'm Chloe Carter, and 6 weeks ago, I was just an ordinary piano teacher scraping by to pay rent on a cramped apartment. My life was simple, until one midnight phone call shattered everything. My grandfather, Henry Carter, a man the world knew as a billionaire tycoon but I knew as the only person who truly believed in me, had died in a horrific accident. The next morning, his lawyer summoned us. I walked into that office, expecting formality, maybe a small inheritance, never imagining what I'd hear. My grandfather had left me everything $7 billion. The room went silent before exploding in rage. My parents' eyes burned with entitlement. My brother slammed his fist on the table. "That money belongs to us," they shouted. I said one word that sealed my fate: no. That night, they threw me out. By dawn, I was unlocking the gates to my grandfather's mansion, unaware of who was waiting inside. Before that night, my life wasn't glamorous. I wasn't rich, or powerful, or even noticed. I was just Chloe Carter, 26 years old, a piano teacher at a small music studio downtown. My days were filled with scales, clumsy beginner pieces, and the occasional prodigy whose fingers flew across the keys like magic. My salary barely covered rent, groceries, and the second-hand car I prayed wouldn't die on the highway. And yet, I wasn't unhappy. I found beauty in small things, the way a child's face lit up when they played their first song, the quiet evenings when I'd curl up with sheet music and practice until my neighbors banged on the wall. My parents, however, never understood. To them, success meant corner offices, expensive cars, and social connections. My passion for teaching music was just another reason for them to look at me with disappointment. The truth was, I had always felt like a stranger in my own family. My father, Richard Carter, a man obsessed with climbing corporate ladders, rarely spoke to me unless it was to criticize. My mother, Diane, cared more about keeping her place in the right social circles than asking how her daughter was doing. My brother, Ethan, was the golden child, spoiled, reckless, and somehow always forgiven. The only person who ever made me feel like I was enough was Grandpa Henry. From the time I was little, his mansion wasn't just a place of wealth, it was a sanctuary. I remember running through the marble halls, not caring about the priceless art on the walls, only about the way Grandpa's laughter echoed after me. On Sunday afternoons, he'd sit beside me at his grand piano, his fingers surprisingly agile for a man in his 70s. He'd lean down and whisper, "Chloe, money will buy you a piano, but it can't buy you music. That comes from here." He'd tap my chest where my heart beat fast. Those lessons went far beyond music. Grandpa taught me that wealth is a tool, not an identity. While my parents spent their lives showing off, Grandpa lived with quiet dignity. He drove the same black sedan for years, wore tailored suits that were older than me, and never once cared about impressing anyone. I spent more weekends at his mansion than at my own home. We baked cookies in the massive kitchen, played chess by the fireplace, and walked the garden where he pointed out roses he'd planted himself. He listened, really listened when I spoke about my dreams. Unlike my parents, he never rolled his eyes. Sometimes, I wondered if he knew I didn't belong with them, if he saw the way my mother flinched when I chose to stay at his house instead of going on family vacations. He never said it out loud, but in the way he smiled at me, I felt a promise. "One day, Chloe, you'll understand why I've kept you close." Back then, I thought it just meant he loved me. I didn't realize it was a warning, too. It was a Tuesday evening when the phone rang. I was grading practice sheets at my kitchen table, half listening to the creaks of my old apartment. When I saw the number on the screen unknown, I almost didn't answer. But something in my gut told me to pick up. "Miss Carter?" A man's voice, heavy and official. "This is Officer Daniels from the State Highway Patrol. I'm sorry to inform you that your grandfather, Henry Carter, was in a collision tonight. His vehicle was struck by a drunk driver. He didn't make it." The world blurred. My pen slipped from my hand, ink bleeding across the page. "Didn't make it?" My chest tightened, refusing to believe. My grandfather wasn't just alive, he was eternal. He was supposed to see me play at my students' recital next month. He was supposed to call me tomorrow to ask if I'd eaten. He couldn't be gone. But he was. The funeral was a blur of black clothes and empty condolences. The mansion that had once felt like a safe haven became a stage for hypocrisy. My parents took charge of everything, not out of love, but out of pride. They barked at the funeral director over flower arrangements, scolded the caterers for not bringing high enough quality hors d'oeuvre. My mother clutched her pearls and whispered loudly, "Can you believe he drove himself? A billionaire, and he still acted like a common man." My father stood stiff, jaw clenched, already calculating. His eyes weren't red from grief. They were sharp, restless, as if he was doing math in his head: assets, accounts, stock holdings. And then there was Ethan. My brother leaned against a marble column, scrolling through his phone, sighing as if the whole event was an inconvenience. When I asked him if he was okay, he shrugged. "I'll be better once we know what we're getting." I wanted to scream. How could they stand in the same room where Grandpa's life was being honored and talk about money? I stood near the casket, staring at his peaceful face. He looked almost asleep, his hands folded neatly over his chest. I whispered so no one else could hear, "I'll make you proud, Grandpa. I promise." But as I glanced around, I realized I was the only one who felt that way. My aunt and uncle, people who hadn't visited in years, wept loudly for the cameras, and then stopped once the photographers packed up. My parents posed for sympathy, but their smiles flickered whenever someone mentioned Grandpa's fortune. When the service ended, I lingered, not wanting to leave him behind. That house, that garden, that piano, they were all haunted now, and I was suddenly very aware I was alone. 2 weeks later, the call came from Michael Turner, my grandfather's lawyer. His voice was calm but firm. "Chloe, your grandfather's will is ready to be read. He requested your presence, and the presence of your immediate family, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., at my office." Something in his tone made my stomach twist. I didn't know it yet, but that meeting would change everything. The next morning, I stood outside the office of Michael Turner, my grandfather's lawyer. The building was an old converted Victorian house, its dark wood and stained glass windows casting long shadows. My palms were sweaty around the handle of my umbrella. It wasn't raining, but the sky hung heavy with gray. Inside, the air smelled faintly of leather and coffee. Michael greeted me with a solemn smile, his silver hair perfectly combed. "Chloe," he said softly, shaking my hand. "Your grandfather spoke of you often. He was proud." I swallowed hard. "Thank you." My voice cracked. Before I could say more, the door burst open. My parents swept in as if they owned the place. My father, Richard Carter, adjusted his expensive watch with a snap of his wrist. My mother, Diane, strutted forward in heels that clicked like gunshots against the hardwood floor. Behind them, my brother Ethan slouched in wearing sunglasses indoors. At 9 in the morning, his shirt half tucked, a smirk plastered on his face. "Let's get this over with," my father barked. "We all know how this goes. My father built the empire, and as his only son, I'll be managing it now." Michael's polite smile didn't falter, but I caught a flicker in his eyes. He gestured for us to follow him into a conference room, where a long oak table waited. I sat near him. My parents claimed the seats at the head, as if it were already theirs. Ethan sprawled carelessly across a chair, his sneakers on the edge of the table. Michael cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and opened a thick leather folder. Henry Carter was of sound mind when he updated his will last year. He underwent cognitive evaluations, and I was present for every signing. There is no question of his capacity. My father waved a hand impatiently. Yes. Read it," Michael began. "I, Henry Carter, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this to be my final will and testament. To my beloved granddaughter, Chloe Carter, I leave the entirety of my estate, financial assets, real estate, investments, and holdings valued at approximately $7 billion. The words hung in the air like thunder. I froze, certain I had misheard. 7 billion? To me? The room exploded. What? My father shot to his feet so fast his chair toppled backward. His face was crimson, veins bulging in his neck. That's insane! He would never bypass me. My mother clutched the table as if it would save her from drowning. 7 billion to a girl who teaches piano? She doesn't know the first thing about handling money. Ethan ripped off his sunglasses and slammed his palm against the wood. Where's my cut? I need capital for my new startup. He promised me. Michael raised a hand calmly. Mr. Carter anticipated this response. He made it clear explicitly that his decision was intentional. He stated that his son and daughter-in-law had been provided for during his lifetime and that he wished his fortune to pass solely to Chloe. My father's fists trembled. Lies. You manipulated him, Chloe, didn't you? Whispered in his ear while he was old and confused. I shook my head, tears pricking my eyes. No, I didn't even know he was rewriting his will. I never asked him for anything. Michael reached for a remote and pressed a button. A large screen on the wall lit up, and suddenly there he was. My grandfather. He sat on his familiar leather chair, hands folded, his voice calm but firm. If you are watching this, it means I've passed. Richard, Diane, Ethan, I love you as family, but I can no longer ignore what you've become. Greed has blinded you. You see me as a wallet, not as a father, not as a grandfather. Chloe is different. She visits because she cares, not because she wants. She lives with integrity. She will carry my legacy with dignity. My mother gasped. Ethan muttered a curse under his breath. My father shouted at the screen. This is manipulation. He wasn't thinking straight. But Michael's voice cut through the chaos. The will is legally binding. Contesting it will be expensive, and given the documentation, nearly impossible. The fury in my father's eyes as he turned to me was enough to chill my blood. This isn't over, Chloe. You think you can defy us? You'll regret it. I sat frozen, my grandfather's words still echoing in my ears. She will carry my legacy with dignity. At that moment, I realized the fortune wasn't just money. It was a weight, a test, a responsibility, and my family would do everything in their power to take it from me. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Come home, 6 o'clock. We'll settle this as a family. There was no question mark, no request. It was an order. I almost didn't go. My chest tightened at the thought of walking back into that house. But a part of me hoped stupidly that maybe they just needed time to calm down. Maybe grief had twisted their words at the lawyer's office. I was wrong. When I arrived, the house was eerily quiet. The living room, usually reserved for my mother's cocktail parties, looked like a boardroom. My father stood by the fireplace, a tumbler of scotch in hand. My mother perched on the edge of a designer chair, her eyes cold and sharp. Ethan sprawled across the sofa, laptop open, typing furiously. Sit, my father commanded. I obeyed, my fingers clenched in my lap. My father's voice was steady, but I could hear the rage simmering beneath. You know what you need to do, Chloe. Sign the estate over to me. I'll manage it properly. You'll receive a generous allowance, 10%. More money than you'll ever need. 10%? I echoed, my voice trembling. That's over $700 million. My mother cut in smoothly. Enough to buy a mansion, enough to live like a queen. You don't need responsibility. Leave that to your father. Ethan slammed his laptop shut. 700 million is plenty. I need the rest for my company. Grandpa wanted me to succeed. Don't be selfish. The words pierced me like knives. Selfish? I whispered. Grandpa chose me because I wasn't like this. Because I didn't see him as a bank account. My father's face hardened. He stepped closer, looming over me. This isn't about choice. It's about family loyalty. Either you sign, or you walk out that door with nothing. Do you understand? The silence stretched. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I thought of my grandfather, his laughter, his lessons, the way he told me money was just a tool. I thought of the way he smiled when I played piano, not because I was perfect, but because I was me. I lifted my chin. No, the room erupted. My mother shot to her feet, her voice shrill. You ungrateful little brat. After everything we've done for you, private schools, lessons, a roof over your head, you dare defy us? Ethan sneered. Enjoy being rich and alone. You'll come crawling back once you realize money can't hug you at night. But it was my father's words that cut the deepest. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. If you walk out of this house tonight without signing, Chloe, you are no longer my daughter. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't expect a single ounce of help. You'll be dead to us." My breath caught. A part of me wanted to cry, to beg him to take it back. But another part of me, the part my grandfather had nurtured, stood firm. "I guess I've been dead to you for years," I said quietly. "You never saw me. You only saw what you wanted." My father's face twisted with fury. He grabbed my arm, yanking me toward the front door. My mother followed, shouting orders like a general. "Pack a bag. 30 minutes. After that, the locks will be changed." I stumbled into my childhood bedroom, the walls still lined with old recital trophies and faded posters. My hands shook as I stuffed clothes into a duffel. I grabbed my passport, my grandmother's quilt, the photo of Grandpa and me at the piano. Everywhere I looked, I saw ghosts of the girl I used to be, of the family I thought I had. When I returned to the hallway, my father was waiting, arms crossed, eyes cold. He opened the front door and gestured outward. Out. The night air was icy as I stepped onto the porch. My bags felt heavier than they were. My mother's voice followed me out. "You'll regret this, Chloe. Money won't keep you warm. Family is forever." I turned, my voice steady despite the tears in my eyes. "Then why did you just throw me away?" The door slammed shut behind me, and just like that, I was homeless. But I wasn't defeated. In my pocket was a small brass key engraved with my grandfather's initials. The key to his mansion. The one place left that felt like home. I gripped it tightly. If they thought they could strip me of everything, they were wrong. This was just the beginning. The drive to my grandfather's estate felt longer than it was. My old sedan rattled along the dark road, headlights cutting through the mist. My duffel bags were piled on the passenger seat, but the only thing I clutched was the small brass key. My grandfather had pressed it into my hand last year with a wink. "Someday you might need this, Chloe." I never imagined he meant now. When the iron gates of the Carter estate came into view, my chest tightened. They rose like sentinels against the night, tall and unyielding, with the family crest carved into the center. For a moment, I hesitated. Could I really cross that threshold without him here? Would the house feel hollow without his laughter? But then I remembered the slam of my parents' front door, the finality in my father's voice. I had nowhere else. This mansion was all I had left. The key slid into the lock with surprising ease. The gates creaked open, and I drove up the winding driveway, lined with old oaks whose branches seemed to bow in welcome. When the mansion came into view, my breath caught. Its windows glowed softly, as though the house itself had been waiting. I parked in the circular drive and climbed the steps to the front door. My hand trembled as I turned the key. The lock clicked, the door swung open, and the scent hit me instantly. Lemon polish and cedarwood, the same smell I'd known since childhood. I stepped inside. The grand foyer stretched before me, marble floors gleaming under the chandelier. My shoes echoed loudly, as if the house were aware of my intrusion. I half expected my grandfather to appear at the top of the stairs, scolding me for being late for Sunday dinner. But the silence was deafening. "Miss Chloe." I jumped, nearly dropping my bag. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall man with silver-streaked hair, dressed in a neatly pressed uniform. Recognition flooded me. "Robert?" My voice cracked. "Robert Hayes?" He smiled faintly, lines deepening around his kind eyes. "Yes, miss. I've been with your grandfather for over 25 years, and now," his gaze softened, "I suppose I'm with you." Emotions swelled in my throat. I thought everyone would be gone. I thought I'd be alone. Robert shook his head firmly. "Mr. Carter anticipated trouble. He told me, if anything happens, you protect Chloe. She is the true heir." He left detailed instructions. Tears pricked my eyes. Of course he had. My grandfather was always 5 steps ahead. Robert led me into the study, where the fire was already crackling. "I keep the house running," he explained. "Your grandfather insisted it remain ready, no matter what. He said one day you might need sanctuary here." I sank into one of the leather chairs, the flames warming my chilled skin. For the first time all night, I felt the weight of safety, but it was fleeting. "What happens now, Robert?" I asked quietly. "My family. They won't let this go. They already threaten me." His expression darkened. "They came here once, after the funeral, tried to take things, jewelry, documents. I stopped them, but Mr. Carter knew they'd be back. That's why he prepared. You'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow? Robert nodded. Mr. Turner, the lawyer, will visit. There are files, recordings, even letters your grandfather left for you. He built a wall of protection around you, Chloe, but you must stand firm. I leaned back, clutching the quilt I'd carried from my childhood bedroom. The house hummed with life around me, the ticking of the grandfather clock, the crackle of the fire, the faint whir of security cameras I hadn't noticed before. For the first time since the will reading, I felt something stronger than fear. Resolve. If my family wanted war, they would find I wasn't alone. My grandfather's mansion wasn't just a house, it was a fortress, a legacy, and I was ready to defend it. That night I slept in the guest room I'd always used as a child. The sheets were freshly laundered. A book I'd left months ago still sat on the nightstand, bookmark tucked neatly inside. It was as if my grandfather had known I'd return not as a visitor, but as the one who belonged. I woke the next morning to the sound of voices downstairs. For a moment, I panicked. Had my family already found me? I grabbed my phone and crept to the landing, only to see Robert at the front door, speaking calmly to a familiar figure. Miss Chloe, Robert called gently. It's Mr. Turner. Relief washed over me. Michael Turner stepped inside, his briefcase in hand, his face serious but warm. He looked around the mansion as though he'd been here countless times. Your grandfather trusted me with more than his will, he said, setting his case on the dining table. He trusted me with you. I followed him into the study where sunlight spilled across the mahogany desk. He opened the briefcase and withdrew a thick envelope, sealed with my grandfather's initials. He wrote you letters, Michael explained. Guidance, instructions, and warnings. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. Inside were neatly typed pages, each one signed in my grandfather's steady hand. Chloe, the letter began. If you are reading this, then I am gone. I know your father and mother will come for you. Do not give in. I have prepared for this moment. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept reading. You will not stand alone. I have gathered people who care for you, people who will protect you when blood turns against you. Trust them as you trusted me. As if on cue, Robert reappeared with a guest. A woman in her 50s, dressed in a simple cardigan, carrying a folder of documents. This is Dorothy Reynolds, Michael said. Your grandfather's housekeeper for over 20 years. She's practically family. Dorothy's eyes welled up as she hugged me. Oh, Chloe, you look just like your mother did when she was young before greed hardened her. Your grandfather adored you. She laid the folder on the table. These are journals. Your grandmother kept them records of every visit, every demand your father made, every kindness you offered. They prove why your grandfather made his decision. I flipped through one. My grandmother's handwriting danced across the page. Richard came again, asking for money. When we said no, he stormed out. Chloe arrived later with soup. She stayed until Harold's fever broke. Every entry was like a knife and a balm, at once painful proof of my parents' neglect, but undeniable validation of my bond with my grandparents. Before I could absorb it, another knock came at the door. Robert returned with a tall woman carrying a laptop bag. This is Rosa Martinez, Michael introduced. Your grandfather's business partner. She knows Alexander Logistics inside and out. Rosa gave me a firm handshake. Your grandfather left me instructions to help you understand the company. He wanted you to know not just where the money came from, but how to protect the people who built it with him. She opened her laptop and displayed spreadsheets, charts, and notes. This isn't just about fortune. Hundreds of employees depend on this empire. He trusted you to uphold his values. Another wave of emotions surged through me. I wasn't just inheriting money, I was inheriting lives. By midday, more allies arrived. George Patel, the investment advisor who had managed my grandfather's portfolio for decades. He brought binders full of transparent records, showing just how carefully my grandfather had planned. Carlos Ramirez, the estate manager who had overseen maintenance of the grounds. He revealed updated security footage cameras my grandfather had ordered installed after suspecting my father's interference. Judge David Harrison, a family friend, who greeted me with a solemn nod. Your grandfather asked me to act as a neutral witness if disputes arose. I will not let his wishes be twisted. The room filled with voices, papers, evidence. For hours, they explained everything my grandfather had done to prepare. Every detail, every precaution, was like a thread woven into a net designed to catch me if I fell. When the last binder was closed, I sat back, overwhelmed. He knew this would happen, I whispered. Michael placed a hand over mine. Yes, and he trusted you to be stronger than them. Robert straightened his shoulders. Your father came here after the funeral, tried to take jewelry and documents. He won't stop. He'll come back, and he'll bring the others. But this time, Chloe, you'll be ready. The fire crackled in the hearth. I looked around the room at the faces loyal, determined, united. They weren't my blood, but in that moment, they felt more like family than anyone I'd ever known. I wiped my eyes and stood. If they want to come for me, let them. I won't run. I won't give up what Grandpa entrusted to me. Dorothy's hand squeezed mine. That's the spirit. He'd be proud. That night, I lay in the master bedroom, staring at the carved ceiling beams. For the first time, I understood the full weight of my inheritance. It wasn't just about surviving my family's rage. It was about protecting everything my grandfather built and proving I was worthy of his trust. And deep down, I knew tomorrow would bring the first true test. The morning air was heavy, almost electric, as though the world itself was bracing for a storm. Robert had stationed himself near the front door, shoulders squared like a soldier awaiting battle. Dorothy bustled in the kitchen, her movements calm but deliberate, as if baking muffins could soften the edges of war. By 9 o'clock, the mansion was alive with allies. Michael spread documents across the dining table, highlighting legal clauses and signatures. Rosa set up her laptop, projecting financial charts that proved how carefully Grandpa had managed the empire. Judge Harrison sat near the fireplace, his presence alone radiating authority. I stood at the center of it all, heart pounding, palms slick. They're coming, I whispered. As if summoned by the words, tires crunched over gravel. Multiple cars pulled into the driveway sleek, expensive vehicles gleaming like predators. My stomach lurched. The pounding on the front door rattled the chandelier. Open up, Chloe, my father's voice boomed. You've had your fun, but this is over. Robert glanced at me. I nodded, forcing my breath steady. He unlocked the door and swung it wide. My family spilled inside like a flood. My father led the charge, his face red, veins bulging. My mother swept in behind him, lips pursed in disdain. Ethan dragged his feet, but his eyes burned with greed. This is still our house, my father barked. You have no right to shut us out. I stood tall, though my knees trembled. Grandpa gave this to me. Legally, morally, every way that matters. Ethan sneered. Don't play innocent. You manipulated him. He wasn't thinking straight. Everyone knows a billion-dollar empire belongs to the family, not some broke piano teacher. Michael rose calmly, holding up a folder. Actually, Henry Carter anticipated these accusations. He left written and video statements clarifying that Chloe was of sound character and that his decision was deliberate. Contesting this will would be futile. My father snatched the folder, flipping pages furiously. Fabricated, he spat. You think a judge will take this over the word of his own son? Depends on which judge, a deep voice interrupted. All eyes turned as Judge Harrison stepped forward. And, unfortunately for you, Richard, I am one of them. Your father asked me personally to oversee any disputes. These documents, this evidence, it's airtight. You won't win. The color drained from my father's face, but rage quickly replaced fear. He jabbed a finger at me. Ungrateful brat, you're tearing this family apart. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling but firm. No. You did that long ago when you chose money over love. My mother's composure cracked, her voice rising shrill. After everything we gave you, private school, lessons, vacations, you repay us like this? $7 billion belongs to the Carters, not to you alone. Dorothy emerged quietly from the side, holding a small box. Actually, Mrs. Carter, your daughter belongs here more than anyone. These are journals your mother-in-law kept. Every visit, every demand, every kindness. They prove exactly why Henry made his choice. My mother froze as Dorothy handed the box to Michael. He pulled out a page and read aloud. Richard demanded money again. When we refused, he shouted that we were stingy. Chloe came later with soup, and stayed until Harold's fever broke. The room was silent, except for the crackling fire. Ethan suddenly lunged forward, slamming his hands on the table. Enough! We don't care about your stupid journals. Chloe, just sign the transfer. I need capital for my new platform. Grandpa would have wanted me to succeed. Rosa's voice cut sharp as glass. He already gave you chances, Ethan. Multiple failed ventures, each one burning through money. Your grandfather refused for a reason because you never earned it. Ethan's face turned crimson. He turned on me. You think you're better than me? You'll choke under this pressure. You'll come begging for help. I stood straighter, fire rising in my chest. No, Ethan. For the first time, I'm not the one begging. My father exploded, sweeping documents off the table, scattering them across the floor. This is garbage. None of this changes the truth. This fortune is mine by right. By right? Judge Harrison thundered. Your father's will is law. You have no claim, Richard. None. And then, as if fate wanted the final word, Robert stepped forward holding a USB drive. Mr. Carter had me install new security cameras last year. They recorded something you should see. Michael plugged it into Rosa's laptop. Footage flickered to life on the screen. My father, mother, and Ethan, rifling through drawers in the mansion days after the funeral, stuffing jewelry and documents into bags. My mother gasped. That's taken out of context. The police chief, who had slipped in quietly through the back, stepped forward now, arms crossed. Context won't matter in court. Theft is theft. You're one step away from handcuffs. For the first time, my father faltered. His bluster shrank, shoulders sagging. My mother's hands shook. Ethan cursed under his breath, backing away from the screen. I seized the moment, my voice cutting through the chaos. I'm done being afraid of you. Grandpa trusted me. You can threaten, scream, steal, but you'll never take his legacy. Not from me. Silence. Then my father's voice, broken and venomous. If you walk this path, Chloe, you are no longer part of this family. I met his eyes, steady. You made that choice the moment you tried to destroy me. The mansion seemed to exhale as they turned, one by one, and stormed out. Their footsteps echoed down the marble hall, doors slamming, engines roaring as their cars disappeared down the drive. I stood frozen, chest heaving. My knees threatened to give out. But then I felt a hand on my shoulder, Michael's calm, steady grip. You did it, he murmured. You stood your ground. For the first time, I believed him. The house was quiet after they left, eerily quiet. No shouting, no threats, no footsteps pounding through the halls. Just the steady tick of the grandfather clock and the crackle of the fire. I stood in the silence, staring at the door that had just closed behind my family. For a moment, I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. My chest ached, as though someone had scooped out the last fragile piece of hope I'd had for reconciliation. But then I thought of Grandpa. I could almost hear his voice in my ear. Stand your ground, Chloe. Dignity can't be stolen unless you give it away. And I realized I hadn't given it away. The days that followed blurred into a whirlwind of paperwork, meetings, and decisions. Michael guided me through every legal document. Rosa walked me through the company's operations. George explained investments. Dorothy kept the house running. And Robert never left my side. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the overlooked daughter, the invisible sibling. I was the one everyone turned to, the one entrusted with a legacy that stretched far beyond money. Still, it wasn't easy. My phone buzzed constantly with calls and messages from my parents and Ethan. Some were threats, "We'll sue you until you're broke." Some were manipulative, "We're still family, Chloe. Surely, you'll share." And some were dripping with false sweetness. "Think about how much we've sacrificed for you." I didn't answer. I had nothing left to say. Instead, I poured myself into what mattered, honoring Grandpa. 3 months later, the Henry Carter Foundation for Education and Community was launched. We dedicated $2 billion to scholarships, schools, and local programs. I stood on stage at the opening ceremony, the foundation's banner fluttering behind me, my hands trembling as I adjusted the microphone. "This isn't just money," I said, scanning the crowd of students, teachers, and community members. "It's a legacy. My grandfather believed in integrity, in hard work, in giving opportunities to those who need them most. Today, we carry that forward. Applause filled the air, and for once, I didn't shrink from it. Life at the mansion slowly transformed. The halls that once echoed with loneliness now buzzed with warmth. On Sundays, I hosted dinners, not with my blood relatives, but with the people Grandpa had trusted. Michael, Rosa, Dorothy, Robert, even some of the company employees and their families. We sat around the long oak table, laughing, sharing stories, passing dishes like an actual family. Dorothy teased me for still burning the dinner rolls. Rosa taught me to make empanadas. Robert told old stories about Grandpa's stubbornness. And Michael, to everyone's shock, could play a surprisingly good piano piece. It was messy, loud, imperfect. And it was mine. One crisp autumn morning, I drove to the cemetery alone. The leaves had turned gold, carpeting the ground in warmth. I carried a bouquet of white lilies, Grandpa's favorite, and knelt beside his grave. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the carved letters. Henry Carter, 1935, 2023. A legacy of integrity. "Hi, Grandpa," I whispered, my voice catching. "I hope you can see me. I hope you're proud." The wind rustled through the trees, and I took a deep breath. I'm trying my best. The foundation is helping kids, hundreds of them. Some will be the first in their families to go to college. Your employees are taken care of. The company's still thriving. And I think I finally understand. It was never about the billions, was it? It was about the values behind them. About using wealth to build, not to destroy. Tears blurred my eyes, but I smiled through them. I promise I'll keep carrying that forward. I won't let your name or your trust be wasted. A gust of wind swept across the cemetery, scattering leaves around me. For a moment, it felt like an answer. That night, as I sat at the grand piano in the mansion, my fingers moving across the keys, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Yes, my blood family had turned their backs on me. Yes, they had tried to break me. But I wasn't broken. I had built something new, something stronger, a family of choice, a mission bigger than myself. And I knew this was only the beginning. Because the true inheritance wasn't the $7 billion sitting in accounts or investments. It was the fire inside me, the determination to live with integrity, to protect what mattered, to carry forward the lessons of a man who had been more than a billionaire. He had been my hero, my teacher, my safe place, my grandfather. And as I played the last note, the sound echoing through the mansion he had once filled with laughter, I whispered into the quiet, "I'll never let you down."